You are now listening to The Survivors Series with Kyle Fields, a One Love Media production.
This episode is about more than curiosity. It's about awareness, about pulling back the digital curtain on a world that most people only hear rumors about. The dark web isn't just a shadowy marketplace or a creepy source of YouTube content. It's a breeding ground for crime, exploitation, and in some cases, horror. But it's also a place where people have survived. And this story, it's about keeping you from becoming a victim too. This is not a tutorial. This is not an invitation. This is a warning with stories, facts, and everything in between. Let's get into it.
This episode contains discussions of suicide, murder, trauma, PTSD, and graphic content related to criminal activity and exploitation on the dark web. Listener discretion is strongly advised.
If you or someone you know is experiencing trauma or needs support, please use one of the following resources. The National Human Trafficking Hotline at 1-888-373-7888. RAINN, RAINN, Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network at 1-800-656-HOPE. That's 1-800-656-4673. The Crisis Text Line. Text HOME, HOME, to 741-741 for free, 24/7. The Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. For immediate help in the U.S., dial 988. This episode is intended to inform and protect. Stay safe, and as always, listen with care. When you think of the internet, most of us picture the surface level. Social media feeds, news articles, cat videos, shopping carts filled with things that we'll forget we wanted. But the truth is, the internet is a lot like the ocean. What we see, that's just the tip of the iceberg, the real weight of it. The darkest, deepest parts are hidden beneath the surface, unspoken, unseen, and unregulated. Welcome to the dark web. It's a term that's become a buzzword for everything sinister. Drug deals, human trafficking, hacked identity, hitmen for hire, and maybe the most chilling of all, those infamous mystery boxes people once dared to order and unbox on YouTube, each promising a peek into the stomach-turning depths of humanity. But let's pause right there for just a second. Because this episode isn't about clickbait. This isn't a ghost story, and this isn't for shock value. This episode is about awareness and survival. Because the dark web, it's real, it's vast, and yes, it can be dangerous, but it's also misunderstood. Not everything on it is evil, but enough of it is that people, especially the young, curious, and vulnerable, are falling into traps that they don't always escape from. And those who do, they carry scars most of us can't see, much less comprehend. Let's break this down from the top. The internet you and I use daily, the part that's indexed and searchable by Google, that's called the surface web. Underneath that is the deep web, which includes things like academic databases, password-protected sites, medical records, or anything that isn't necessarily open to the public. Then comes the dark web. To access it, you don't just type darkweb.com into a browser. You need special software like Tor, short for the onion router. And just like an onion, the dark web has layers. Layers designed to hide the identity and location of the user. It's where anonymity isn't just a feature, it's the whole point. Now, anonymity can be a powerful thing. It can protect whistleblowers. It can offer safety for political activists living under oppression. But like any tool, it can also be weaponized. And that is where the danger lies. Because when people are stripped of accountability, when there's no face or name attached to an action, some will choose to become monsters. Over the past decade, the dark web has evolved into a marketplace of human depravity. Some parts feel like digital versions of black alleys, selling everything from guns to drugs to stolen credit cards. Others go even darker, offering child exploitation materials, torture videos, snuff films, and even alleged human auctions. And while not every story that circulates is true, some of them are. And even one is too many. And here's the terrifying part. It's easier to find than you think. Teenagers stumble onto it out of curiosity. College students access it as a dare or to buy drugs anonymously. Even adults wander into forums thinking it's harmless, and they leave psychologically scarred after seeing things they can't unsee. We're going to talk about some of that today. Not to glorify it, but to demystify it. To shine a light on a world designed to exist in the shadows. We're going to explore what happens when people think the screen makes them untouchable. And we're going to hear the stories of people who got out, but not unscathed. But I want to say this up front. This isn't about fear-mongering. This isn't an anti-tech rant. And this episode isn't bashing law enforcement either. In fact, we're going to talk about the officers and agencies working tirelessly to crack down on the worst of what the dark web hides. The truth is, there are people risking their lives online and off to keep these horrors from spreading further. But the question is, how do we protect the innocent before they become the next victims? How do we educate people without traumatizing them? How do we recognize the signs that someone we love might be spiraling into that world? That's what this episode's about. We'll talk about the psychological pull of the dark web, the adrenaline, the illusion of control, the rabbit holes people don't realize they've fallen into until it's too late. We'll look at cases where survivors have come forward and what they want the world to know. And as always, we'll end with a reminder that no one is too far gone. No one is beyond help. And the darkness doesn't get to win. So let's go there together. Because sometimes the only way to bring light into the shadow is to walk right into it. In the mid-2010s, a strange trend started creeping across YouTube. The premise? Simple. Someone would log onto the dark web, pay a few $100 or more for something labeled a mystery box, then film themselves opening it on camera. What came next became internet folklore. Viewers watched in equal parts fascination and horror as people unboxed everything from dirty dolls with glassy eyes to used syringes, blood-stained clothing, hard drives, cryptic notes, and most disturbingly, what some claimed were human remains. The thumbnails were designed to lure you in. Titles like, "I bought a mystery box from the dark web at 3 a.m. and there was a finger inside." accompanied by exaggerated gasps and reaction faces. Millions of views poured in. Comment sections lit up with people begging for more, and just like that, the internet's obsession with the grotesque had found a new genre. But here's what nobody really stopped to ask. Were any of them real? And worse, what if one of them was? The majority of these videos were staged. That much is true. Creators were faking the contents of these boxes to keep their audiences hooked. And while that's gross in its own right, because trauma should never be entertainment, it's what came next that crossed the line from unsettling to outright dangerous. People, like normal, started copying it. Regular people, kids, teenagers, they'd save up, borrow a credit card, or just find a shady seller on a forum, and they'd actually order from the dark web. They didn't realize that some vendors weren't playing games. Some boxes weren't for shock value. They were warnings. They were breadcrumbs. They were traps. You don't just dip your toes into the dark web and walk away clean. And for the unfortunate few who did this for real, some didn't walk away at all. There are stories, rare but real, of people who ordered mystery boxes and received GPS trackers. One user claimed they got a package with a note that said, "See you soon," and found a camera hidden inside a teddy bear. Another opened a box that contained nothing but a mirror and a single printed photo of themselves sitting at their computer. It doesn't matter how skeptical you are. The threat, it's not in whether the box is haunted or cursed or gory. It's that when you deal with criminals on the dark web, you are being watched, tracked, cataloged. And here's the kicker most people forget. When you give someone your address to send a mystery box from the dark web, you've just handed your home location to a criminal. One that specializes in staying invisible. So why did this trend explode? Because fear sells, shock sells, the unknown sells. But more than that, people wanted to believe in something darker, in something more mysterious than their boring, mundane lives, in something to make them feel something, even if it was disgust or fear. That's the pull of the dark web. It's not just the anonymity, it's adrenaline, it's the forbidden, and for some, it's the only place they think they can feel anything at all. But let me tell you this, no thrill is worth your safety. No click is worth your trauma, and no mystery is worth opening a door you might not be able to close again. These boxes weren't just creepy props. They were a symbol of how curiosity, when mixed with desperation and a lack of guidance, can get weaponized. And the internet, especially the dark parts of it, is always ready to devour the curious. So if you've ever wondered if those boxes were real, the answer is yes and no. And does it really matter? Because what's real is the danger. What's real are the people who didn't make it out. And what's real are the survivors who live with the aftershocks of a single wrong click. This isn't a trend. It's a warning. The internet is a marketplace. That's not news. But the dark web, that's a whole other economy. One with without morals, one without oversight, and one without mercy. In the shadows of encrypted networks and anonymous forums, anything can be bought. If you know where to look: drugs, weapons, malware, human beings. Let that sink in. People aren't just vanishing, they're being sold. On the surface, that sounds like an urban legend, a conspiracy. But let's be clear, human trafficking is very real. The dark web just gave it a new storefront. These aren't your Hollywood-style auctions in dimly lit rooms with evil billionaires sipping champagne. No, they're hidden transactions between strangers on forums or timed listings that vanish after a few minutes. They're pictures with no faces, lists of attributes, cryptic tags like new, untouched, and obedient. And worse, sometimes they're mixed in with legitimate ads. Sometimes they're listed as furniture with prices that don't match, descriptions that sound off, or item names that match missing persons report. Remember the Wayfair scandal? No proof ever connected it to trafficking. But the idea of it, that's what got people scared. Because for a brief second, the world was forced to ask itself, what if this does happen? What if someone is being sold like a product? And what if that someone could be anyone? The scariest thing about trafficking on the dark web isn't just that it exists. It's that it thrives in silence. Survivors of trafficking rarely come forward, and when they do, their stories are fragmented, trauma-ridden, and hard to hear. But they do exist. One woman who escaped after being trafficked overseas reported that her captors used the dark web to schedule appointments with buyers. Her name was never shown, her face was hidden. She was nothing but a file number and a set of stats, like she wasn't even human at all. Another survivor said her captors would live stream shows on encrypted video channels, selling time slots to anonymous users. You don't need a Netflix subscription to watch horror. All you need is a VPN, some crypto, and a total lack of a soul. And here's the brutal truth. Drug dealers, arms smugglers, and traffickers use the dark web for the same reason anyone uses the internet. Because it's faster, it's scalable, it's efficient. The Silk Road, the most infamous dark web marketplace, once moved over $1 billion in illegal goods before being shut down. But shutting down one site doesn't destroy the system. It just forces it to evolve. Every time a marketplace is taken down, another two pop up like weeds. They're smarter, more encrypted, and more vicious than before. But let's shift gears for a second, because this isn't just about fear, it's about awareness, it's about survival. If you're listening and thinking, why would anyone risk going onto the dark web? You're already asking the right questions. But for some, that risk isn't a choice. Kids get lured in thinking they're just exploring. People stumble across sites without fully understanding what they're opening. Victims are groomed on regular social media platforms and funneled toward encrypted apps. Traffickers don't just lurk in alleys anymore. They DM, they friend request, they follow you, they make you feel seen until they make you disappear. So here's the bottom line. The dark web is a tool. Like any tool, it can be used or misused. But unlike your average browser, there's no safety net, no password resets, no oops button, no undo. It doesn't care how curious you are. It doesn't care that you're just exploring. Once you're in, you're in. And for some people, getting out isn't an option. This is why this show exists. Because not everyone knows what they're walking into. Not every victim wears chains. Some wear smiles. Some wear headphones while watching YouTube. Some thought they were buying a thrill. Some thought they found love. And now they're gone. You want to stop it? Start by paying attention. Start by having the uncomfortable conversations. Start by believing the survivors who live to tell the story, because no one chooses to be trafficked. But we can all choose to be the kind of society that fights like hell to stop it. There's a myth about the dark web that needs to die. That everyone who ends up there is either a predator or a fool. But the truth, most people who got pulled in didn't even know what they were stepping into. Some were desperate, some were tricked, some were just kids. Let's talk about survival. Because the dark web doesn't leave bruises you can see. It leaves fractures in trust, in identity, in memory. And for those who make it out, the story doesn't end, it haunts. Take the case of Amy, not her real name. She was 15 when she started chatting with a guy online. He seemed sweet. He listened. He said all the right things. He sent her music, jokes, little gifts. It took 6 months for him to convince her to send a photo. 6 months to build that trust. One photo was all it took to trap her. He threatened to release it. Said he'd post it on forums unless she sent more. And when she begged him to stop, he laughed and said, "You're on the shelf now. There's no going back." That photo ended up on a hidden forum. Hundreds of comments, thousands of views. He sold her name, her school, and her fear. Amy's image was shared so many times that when the FBI finally got involved, they found it on servers across 3 continents. But Amy lived. She got out. And now she speaks, not to shame herself, but to warn others. Because there's no type of person who ends up being victimized by the dark web. There's just access and intent. Survivors come from every background, every faith, every age group, every neighborhood. Some were tricked into being trafficked. Some unknowingly participated in crimes. Some just wanted to feel something. And the common thread? Shame. Shame that silences. Shame that isolates. Shame that lets predators thrive. But when that shame is burned off, when it's finally spoken out loud, what you're left with is a survivor, not a victim, a warrior. There was another case, a boy named Marcus. He was lured into the dark web through gaming forums. Thought he was getting early access codes, thought he'd found a hacker friend who'd hook him up. What he found instead was a grooming ring. He disappeared for 6 months. When police finally tracked the IPs, they found footage, live footage that had been viewed by over 80,000 people. Marcus was in it. When they rescued him, he didn't even recognize his own name. But he's here now. He's alive. He's still breathing. That's what survival looks like. It's not pretty. It's not tied up in a bow. It's messy, long, and laced with therapy, courtrooms, nightmares, and learning how to feel safe again. And if you're someone listening right now, thinking, that happened to me, or that could have been me, or that's happening to someone I know, you're not alone. You're not crazy, and your story matters. And if it is happening to you or happening to somebody you know, please reach out for help. There are people who will help. This podcast isn't about fear. It's about light. It's about the power of being believed, the power of being seen, the power of reclaiming your voice from the shadows. The survivors of the dark web didn't choose to be there, but they are choosing to speak now, to fight back, to keep others from falling into the same void. And maybe, just maybe, that's what justice really looks like. Out of abundance of caution, I want to be clear. I did not personally access the dark web to research this episode. All of the information you're hearing was gathered through AI tools and trusted, publicly available sources. The risk involved in exploring these corners of the internet are very real, and they're not worth taking lightly. That's exactly why we're doing this episode, to keep you safe and aware. Now, here's the thing that most people don't realize. The dark web isn't some distant, unreachable corner of the universe. It's right here, running parallel to the internet we all use every day. And while some people find their way into that world out of curiosity, others are dragged in, manipulated, trapped. That's why this segment matters, because we're not just talking about the shadowy clicks and the creepy content. We're talking about people, survivors, victims, and the danger that starts when you think it can't happen to me. Let's start with some truths. The dark web can be accessed by anyone with the right tools, and that includes kids, teenagers, the curious, the lonely. It's easy to assume that you need a hacker's brain to find a way into that world, but the truth is, downloading a Tor browser and following a few Reddit threads is all it really takes. And once you're in, it's not just what you find, it's what finds you. It starts with mystery boxes. They became a trend on YouTube. People ordering supposed dark web mystery boxes filled with creepy, random items. Some were hoaxes, some were not. There were videos showing bloodstained baby dolls, supposed human remains, bizarre flash drives with encrypted files, and even some with detailed maps of people's homes. Viewers ate it up. But what many didn't realize was this. Some of those boxes weren't random. Some were targeted. Some came with tracking devices hidden inside. Some were sent as a part of twisted games played by buyers and sellers with far worse intentions. This isn't entertainment. It's exploitation, and sometimes it's stalking. Other people stumble onto forums where hitmen supposedly advertise services. While many are scams or honeypots set up by law enforcement, not all are. There have been documented cases of people being blackmailed, trafficked, or having personal information leaked simply because they were lured in by curiosity or accidentally shared too much. Criminals thrive in the dark because the dark gives them cover. And this isn't hypothetical. Real people have suffered because of it. There are survivors out there, people who clicked a link thinking that they were chatting with a friend or exploring something edgy, only to find themselves hunted, exposed, or in some cases, abducted. One such survivor, whose story was shared anonymously in a cybersecurity documentary, was a teenage girl from Ohio who got involved with a so-called darknet boyfriend who promised her safety and love. He used that trust to manipulate her into sending personal data and images, and then threatened to release it unless she met him in person. She ran. She was lucky. Many others aren't. And this isn't just about teenagers or creepy boxes. Drug dealers have used the dark web to avoid law enforcement for years. Silk Road was just the beginning. After it was shut down, dozens of copycats popped up. These networks sell opiates, counterfeit pills, and weapons, some of which have ended up in the hands of kids. And because these transactions are encrypted and often done through cryptocurrency, it becomes incredibly difficult to trace. That's not to say that law enforcement isn't fighting back. They are. Some of the best cyber task forces in the world are working to bring these networks down. But it's a constant cat and mouse game. And for the average person, the best weapon you have is knowledge. So let's talk about how to stay safe. Number 1, do not download, Tor, or attempt to access the dark web unless you're a cybersecurity expert or law enforcement professional. Curiosity isn't worth your life, your safety, or your sanity. Number 2, talk to your kids and teens. Make this a household conversation. The dark web sounds like a myth to many young people, and it's not. Ask them what they know. Educate them on the risks. Make sure they feel safe coming to you if something weird happens online. Number 3, never engage with anyone offering illegal services or content. Not only could you become a victim, you could also become a target of law enforcement investigations. Number 4, if you receive strange packages, USB drives, or items you didn't order, do not open them. Report them. Number 5, use cybersecurity tools and stay updated. Enable 2FA or two-factor authentication. Don't reuse passwords, and never click links from unknown sources. But maybe the most important piece of advice, if it feels wrong, it probably is. The dark web might seem like a place where monsters live in code and encryption, but in reality, the worst part isn't the site. It's the people, the intentions, the acts that get carried out when no one is watching. And sometimes, they are watching. So whether you're a parent, a teacher, a friend, or just someone who likes to explore, you deserve to feel safe, to be safe. Let this episode be a warning, not a scare tactic. Let it remind you that curiosity can be beautiful, but it should never come at a cost of your life or someone else's. There are survivors, but there are far too many victims who never got the chance to become one. If you or someone you know has been threatened, harassed, or exploited online, please reach out to local law enforcement or organizations that specialize in cybercrime and victim support. You are not alone, and there are people ready to help. And for those who just wanted to peek into the darkness from a safe distance, I hope this episode was that window. I hope it scratched the curiosity without inviting danger. And more than anything, I hope it reminded you just how important it is to protect yourself and the people you love. I'm Kyle Fields for the Survivor Series, and until next time, stay safe.
This episode of the Survivor Series was hosted by Kyle Fields, written and researched by Mary Rodriguez, and produced by One Love Media. All rights reserved. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to follow us on social media and subscribe for future episodes. Until next time, stay safe and stay strong.